Welcome back to another episode of Reliability Expo, and today we're in Bradenton, Florida at the Iris facility. And today we're here to check out the SonusViewPro ultrasound analysis software. Okay, so today we're back. We're going to be taking a look at the SonusViewPro software that Iris has to offer, and with me today is Drew Waltz. Drew is the training manager here at Iris. Welcome, Drew.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Glad you guys could be here.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it. So we want to take a look at this software. So basically, could you run us through exactly how it works?
Yeah, so our SonusViewPro software has two platforms in one. One is the analyzer, which we're going to go through now, and we'll take a look at how we can analyze sound waves. The other one's a recorder. So if somebody has a device that maybe doesn't have onboard sound recording, or maybe they like analyzing in the field, they can run the signal directly to the platform on a tablet or a laptop, record the sound wave, and then play it back on the analyzer and see what kind of fault condition they might have in the field.
Awesome. So let's run through this. Let's take a look.
Okay. So this is going to be a sample that somebody used to actually go through our phone app to use. There is a phone app that comes with it included in the price. So they can actually record in the field and email back to me if they want for analysis, or they can email back to somebody at their office that might have the laptop in front of them if they don't have the laptop in the field to do the analysis. So it's your basic platform where you have a time signal analysis, frequency spectrum, and then some other fancy screens that we're going to get into. So I'm going to open up an electrical file. And the biggest thing with sound analysis is being able to actually pick apart harmonic occurrences that are displayed and determining the distance between them. So frequency spectrum sometimes might be a little bit tough to determine due to the simple fact that they might not have the critical angle. They might not be lined up, so they won't get full resolution on it. But when they've got a good signal strength and they're in line with it and they're in that critical angle, they'll be able to see pretty clearly what's going on. So let's reset this real quick. Okay, we'll go ahead and hit play here. So this is a classic sound wave that everybody's heard over the years at every webinar or at every trade show. This is the sound of a loose connection. So we have that very distinct sound. But one of the things we have going on with this screen is we have both the left and right channel view of it. So we can actually take a look and we can mark harmonics in the time signal just like we would in an FFT. The exciting thing for me is that we can actually get down to, if you want to mark your harmonics out beyond a millionth of a second. Most platforms right now only go to a tenth of a second, which is good at marking something, but you won't be able to tell if there's a difference between dirty power, which is generally going to fall at 121 hertz to 122 hertz, and then its subsequent time second interval is going to be 0.0082 seconds of time, whereas if you've got a 120 hertz signal, you're looking for that 0.008 value. Right. So being able to get beyond the thousandths of a second and into the millionth of a second, we can really determine what's going on with that actual sound pattern. Now again, this is a time signal, also known as a time waveform, but we can quickly change to a more traditional screen where we have both our frequency spectrum, better known as an FFT, or our time signal. At the top here, we actually have our ability to see the entire length of the time waveform. Now this gives us the ability to actually drag this highlight box up and down, and then that'll change what we're viewing in our two screens below. So we have over here to the left, we have a red line and a black line. The red line is the starting point of where we're actually viewing below, and the black line is the boundary for the right side. We can actually expand that pretty easily just by simply clicking the left click and holding down and dragging to the right, and we can expand more time. Now with any type of analysis, especially electrical, I've found that over the years only 0.2 of a second is all we really need to look at to find that fault frequency and time of a electrical fault, either at 0.016 or 0.017, depending on if you want to round up, and if you went out to a millionth of a second, then you could see 6 to infinity if you want. So you can really kind of drill down into this. So let me crunch this back down to a manageable time frame. And if I grab the red line and hold down and drag to the left, I can also change my view as well. Now we can also zoom in on different areas. Now obviously if we're looking down here at our frequency spectrum, we're out to like 5,000 hertz. We don't need to be that far out. We only need the first 1200 to really see what's going on. So just drag a box, and now I can start looking for spikes. And we can pretty clearly see that we have some harmonic indications showing up here pretty clearly. So if we actually drop a marker, we come up to this little highlighter, and I can mark them individually, which has been proven to be useful, or I can choose harmonics, where as soon as I put it down at that value, it's going to repeat at that value 10 times. So one of the things I've noticed is sometimes with the electrical faults, they might not start right at 60. So having a harmonic cursor that is going to repeat that first value 10 times doesn't always work.
Yeah, that helps tremendously, especially when you're trying to figure it out on your own. And putting single points and going, oh, I think it's close, I don't know. When you could have one or two other issues going on. But this is very helpful.
Well, and especially like you just mentioned, if we have one or two issues going on in the case of a bearing.
Right.
How often has it been, well, is it my inner race? Is it my outer race? Is it my ball pass? Is it my cage? So now if you take a bearing fault calculator and you input your values of RPM, and if it's a VFD, what's the line frequency, and how many balls are in there, you can actually calculate right down to the exact frequency that you'd look to see for the difference between an outer race versus an inner race. Right. So it makes it very user-friendly. We can even come down and do the same as far as marking harmonics in the time signal. So I generally look for the top side, but we can also measure the bottom value, which in the case of this loose connection, where's my amplitude showing up more intense, Joe?
More intense on the bottom.
So let's switch to, instead of maximum, let's go to our minimum value.
Okay.
Yep. So now that spike is going to be marked on the bottom side. So you can come down through there and just drop a bunch of harmonics on there as you wish. And again, it's going to mark the lowest value of amplitude, or the most intense side of the negative portion, and it'll tell you what your value is. So now it's really easy to switch back over to your maximum and then cross-reference, oh, hey, look, we're only at like 10,000 with our max. So let's switch over to the max side of it. So our first one is negative 29,671, and our positive portion of it's only at 11,666. So we get these values that we can mark our highest amplitude and our lowest amplitude. But again, we can start calculating our distance here between these peaks, and we're starting off at 0.016 to 0.051. So you can do the math real quick and figure, hey, am I at a 0.016 value? So off the top of your head, not quite there, right? We're a little beyond. So let's take a look at some of these other ones. So if we go from this one, so right there, 0.118 to 0.129, still not quite there. So we know we don't have an electrical fault going on, right, because we're not seeing a 60 hertz or a two-time event at 0.008.
Something else going on.
But where this gets really good is we have the ability to now actually take this and look at the sound wave in what's known as a spectrogram.
Okay.
So if I come up here to my analysis and I scroll down to spectrogram, I have to go back into analysis real quick, and I'm going to hit my compute button. That's going to calculate everything. You click OK. And now we get a scatter plot, basically, of colored amplitude of that same sound wave in a two-dimensional reference. So this is, kind of cool for reporting, because on some events you'll start seeing, like right here at the 100 hertz, there's a pretty strong band almost down the full length. We can see up here we've got some darker colors where the amplitude's less, and then we get a little bit more amplitude, and then we get a little bit less, and then we get a little bit more. So you'll start seeing banding inside of that. And when you get into bearings, you really start to see a lot more of that. Or if you get into a straight voltage issue, you can see a lot more of that. We can then even take this into an analysis spectrogram. So now we have the ability to highlight our area on the main field, and we can grab our cursor here. And as I drag this from the left to the right, you can notice it's lining up along the bottom. And it's telling me what time interval and what the amplitude is of that one particular spot. So now I'm lined up here, and I looked cross-reference. My horizontal's right here, so we see it over on the right side under the frequency spectrum. Still kind of a cool, unique screen, but the wow factor on this software for me has been this spectrogram surface. And let me go back in here real quick. Compute. And let's grab a little bit more amplitude here, and now we can actually see this in 3 dimensions. So we can spin this whole thing around in whatever view you want to look at, if you want to look down the length of it, if you want to look from the underside of it. So you can spin this entire thing around, and then if I hold down my right click and I drag, I can shrink in or zoom out on this area as well too. So for reporting, this is kind of cool because now it takes that 2-dimensional and gives you a 3D one that you can use for reports. But I mean, this is just basic stuff here. We can actually go back for our analysis when you start getting into wanting to do comparison analysis, or maybe you've got a couple months of data on something that's occurring and you want to go in and see what's going on. We can actually pull up another sound wave. And let's see, let's grab this. And I can change my colors. So this is kind of cool on my overlays. This next sound wave that I'm pulling up is going to be green. But if I hit this green one, and this just came into play recently, we were doing a webinar. We have a company that's buying a bunch of these software platforms for their service guys, and they have a couple gentlemen that are colorblind. Yeah. So green's not one of the colors that works for them. So they can now change the colors to customize for that particular individual. So I'm actually going to make this one like a black color. And then you just click OK. And now we can come up and we'll play this one. And again, at the top, we see our entire time waveform at the top. You can see that amplitudinal change. We can see the overlay feature here. We can see it here. Now we notice that it's a little bit shorter right now. That's because I haven't expanded that view box in the top to 0.2 of a second yet. Okay. So let me do that first. A little bit beyond. There we go. And we'll hit play. So now originally when I recorded this sound wave was kind of an unknown electrical event. After I came on board with Iris, we have another device that does transient earth voltage testing, and I learned from that company that, hey, this is actually a partial discharge event that we're picking up. Oh, wow. So all these years that people have heard this little sound, but it wasn't really giving any good harmonic indications, it's actually a partial discharge event. So maybe very small nick in the wiring when somebody's pulling the cable through. Maybe there was, oxidized holes in the curing process of the wire's insulation. So it's kind of cool to go from not knowing initially to suddenly now, hey, this is a known event and this is a partial discharge. So let me go ahead and stop it here. And I want to show you that right now we can see in the background. So if this was our first month and we'll use the blue as the second month, how do you really see that? It's kind of tough to see those when we're overlaying. Now, some software you can't actually overlay in FFT. Or sorry, take that back, time signal. Mm-hmm. But now being able to overlay in time signal and FFT, we can actually go to what's known as a 3D version of these. So if I come into my editing chart, I come down here to 3D, and change my view. Now I get some separation. Mm-hmm. So now I can kind of start to see, hey, look, I still see a little bit of those spikes down in the negative portion more so than the positive, but look what happened a couple months later. It's gotten worse. Right, yeah. We can do the same in the actual frequency spectrum as well. Just reset this, and we'll go back here to edit chart. And we're going to change the view on this one. And again, now we get separation. So now we can see, look how much more intense it's gotten since last month when we were out there.
Right, so you have this trend that you can start to say, hey, we need to increase our frequency, or there's a problem, we need to go check it out, whatever you guys determine to do. But that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, and this has been the bane of existence for years for electrical inspection with ultrasound was we can't really trend decibels. There's no progression of failure like there is with the bearing. Right. So we were always kind of shoving it off to, I hear something, and then 10, 15 years ago, somebody made a device with ultrasound recording capability. Mm-hmm. And then that's when it was still kind of like, well, the image kind of looks like this. Well, now being able to overlay these in both formats, being able to start marking harmonics out to a millionth of a second, we can get very specific very quickly on what the fault actually is.
Yeah, that's great. So what if I have an SDT SDT gun and I have Ultra Probe?
Okay.
Can I use this software with both?
Yeah, so actually If any device, any audio device can actually be run. You can take your basic meeting recording device and play back the sound waves on it. So all you need to do is you have to get a splitter. So for the SDT, for example, they have the larger headphone jack, so you just need to get an adapter down to a 3.5 cable, and then you put that into the laptop and use the recorder, or you can download the app, because when you purchase our software, you get the app for free as well. Same thing with the UE platform. If you have a 3000 or 9000, you can patch directly into the phone app or directly into the laptop and record. And if you have a 10,000 or a 15, you can actually just take the cards out and it'll play the sound waves off the cards.
Okay, awesome. So what about training? Like, do you guys offer training on this? How long would it take for a technician to really grasp what they're doing here, or an analyst, I should say?
So a CBM technician going out just doing basic stuff, we can teach them. We have a Category 1 ISO certification ASU course that we do online or live on site. We don't really do them here as much because we haven't found a lot of people are allowed to come to Florida much anymore. So we can do it online, we can do it on their site. We have a Cat 2 ultrasound course that's live or online. But we also I do webinars for clients that purchase a Sonus XT device, or if they have another company's device and they're switching over to our software. When they buy our software, they get a couple days of webinars. And then afterwards, I help them with some sound analysis to kind of get them going, because that's really the toughest part, is that sound analysis.
Right. The supporting function would need to be there, right, to kind of help them get the ball rolling. So that's great. Is there anything else that this can do that stands out from everybody else?
Well, as far as standing out, I just think that spectrogram surfacing is really there. There's some other plotting, some spiderweb plotting and stuff like that, but as an ultrasound enthusiast, I really find that the spectrogram surfacing is probably my favorite for reporting and showing people a wow factor. But for analysis, the time signal. I'm a huge time signal fan, because no matter what angle you're at, that event's always going to show up in a time signal with some portion, because it's not dependent on converting from a time signal to a frequency spectrum.
Yeah. So when I purchase the software, is it limited licensing as far as, say, just one desktop or one central location? How does that work?
So our licensing is for every purchase you get 3 licenses.
Okay.
You then control, you create a login on our website, and that's where you would register your Sonus XT if you bought one, or your Sonus PD, and it's where you pick up your software and download the phone app and all that right from our website. So you can actually control. So if you have a company that you've got 2 other guys you want to give the software to, and the one guy retires in 2 years, or the laptop dies, you have control to be able to deactivate that one and reactivate a new one.
Okay. And what does this software run generally?
So generally it's $699 for the 3 licenses, but we do global licenses. We recently did one for a service provider that's international, and we set a price point that was fair to them for 30 licenses. Right. So, and it was right in line with FLIR's pricing as well too, so it was real easy for them.
No, that's great. So is there anything else that we've missed when it comes to the analyzer?
I think the basics are good. I could dive deeper into the weeds here, but I think that would be a better topic for another time.
Awesome. Hey, Drew, appreciate your time.
Hey, Joseph.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so let's take a look at some pros and cons associated with the SonusViewPro software. First and foremost, the reporting capabilities. This kind of blew me away. I mean, you're talking about 3D modeling that you can turn sideways and scale and shrink and go upside down and backwards. It just blew me away. You actually learn, doing this analysis isn't what I do every day for a living, even though I've got some certifications. It's not what I do every day. And seeing the way that this does some of those things really gives you a better understanding of some banding and some other things that from an analysis perspective can really truncate your time in pinpointing exactly what's going on. So the reporting capability was absolutely phenomenal. The attention to detail in the software itself. It's well designed, it's well configured, it's simple to use, it's got an easy user interface. All of those things are pluses versus, in some cases you're talking about proprietary software that's really tough to use, or at least has been in the past in some organizations. In this instance, out of the box, this thing is very capable and very simple to use. Granularity. So you have the ability to drill down into very minute points in time and see not only like peaks and pluses minus peaks, but you're also looking at very specific harmonics in very short periods of frequency. And so you have the ability to analyze things that you wouldn't necessarily have the ability to analyze and pinpoint down into root causes with some other potential softwares there. So really good. The functions regardless of device. So it doesn't matter if you take a voice recording, this thing's going to analyze it. So it's just taking a sound wave and putting it in the software, and it is what it is. Whether it's harmonic, whether it's coming from an ultrasound device, whether it's coming from this microphone. It doesn't matter. It's taking that information and allows you to analyze it. So that's pretty cool because, you want to like record your significant other and analyze their voice. I guess you can, All right, on the con side of things. Cost. Well, this thing's relatively $600 according to Iris, and if you buy the Sonus XT, the software's separate. It's not part of the package. And while the Sonus XT is an entry-level device, and so it's priced at an entry-level device, the software is separate. It's not a package deal. Now, however, because it's separate, you don't necessarily have to have a Sonus XT to use the software. If you've got another manufacturer's device, like we said, all you need is a sound wave. If you have a sound wave, it'll analyze it. So even though cost is a little bit, I wouldn't say high, but it's not included in the package, there are advantages to that as well. So this kind of bridges a gap between both sides here because you have the ability to use this software with any manufacturer's ultrasonic listening device. So there you have it. In terms of the software, I'm a big fan of it. I thought it was very simple to use. I thought it was easy, clean design. So overall, I think it's a really good product.
Hey, if you would like your product reviewed by Reliability Expo, contact us at ask@reliabilityx.com. We'll set up a time where we can either come onto your site or you can ship us your product or give us access to your software, and we can do a product review for your organization as well. Contact us at ask@reliabilityx.com.